Hi guys, ako to si Doug Adam at ngayon tuturuan ko kayo kung paano gamutin ang singaw. Joke lang, hindi ako si Doug Adam.
Hi guys, my name is Manipol Jr. and in this video, we're going to talk about the different types of isolating mechanisms that can lead to speciation. And we're also going to give some examples of the organisms that have the characteristics, and also we're going to talk about the modes of speciation. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it.
First, let's define speciation. So speciation is the evolutionary process by which populations evolve to become distinct species. Reproductive isolation is a mechanism that keeps species from mating with others. First is the pre-zygotic isolation, which prevents the fertilization of eggs, while post-zygotic isolation prevents the formation of the fertile offspring. The pre-zygotic isolating mechanisms. The first one is the geographic isolation. Geographic isolation occurs when two populations are separated by geographic barriers such as rivers, mountains, or bodies of water. For example, the kaibab squirrel is a subspecies of the abred squirrels that formed when a small population became isolated on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. Temporal and seasonal isolation. Temporal isolation means isolated in time. So, this is a mechanism that prevents species from mating because they breed at different times. These differences can be time of day, season, or even different years. So in short, they could live in the same place but they have different mating seasons. For example, leopard frogs and wood frogs reach sexual maturity at different times in the spring. That's why they cannot interbreed. Behavioral isolation occurs when there's mismatches in mating traits, which prevent mating between two species or populations. One example is the blue-footed boobies. Blue-footed boobies are known for their courtship behaviors, where males dance very specific movements to attract females, and once a female selects a male, the pair remains monogamous for at least that breeding season. So, the bluer the feet, the more attractive the mate. Mechanical isolation is caused by structures or chemical barriers that keep species isolated from one another. So basically, it means that there are physical barriers, like their genitals don't line up. So for example, a bigger cat cannot breed with a smaller cat because they have different shape and sizes genitals. Gametic isolation is a type of pre-zygotic barrier where the gametes or the egg and sperm come into contact but no fertilization takes place. Gametes may be unable to recognize one another in different species. Due to some chemical signals released by an egg, the sperm may not be even attracted to it. And another factor that prevents the fusion is a sperm that can't penetrate an egg due to its own chemical makeup. For instance, the female of the most fish species simply release their eggs into the water of the preferred breeding locale. Male fish of that species then come along and release their sperm over the eggs to fertilize them. However, since this takes place in a liquid environment, some of the sperm got swept away by water molecules and got dispersed, where no gametic isolation mechanisms in place. Any sperm could fuse with any egg, which would result in hybrids of whatever species happened to be mating in the water there at the time. Post-zygotic isolation. The first one in the list is the hybrid inviability, which is a post-zygotic barrier which reduces a hybrid's capacity to mature into a healthy, fit adult. The relatively low health of these hybrids compared to purebred individuals prevents gene flow between species. One example is the hybrid embryos of sheep and goats. For example, they die in the early developmental stages before birth. Second one in the list is the hybrid sterility, which basically means that two different species can breed and produce an offspring But the offspring mostly suffers from low fertility, which means that they are incapable of making babies or giving birth. For instance, a mule, which is a hybrid between female horse and male donkey, could develop into adult, but fails to develop functional gametes, therefore is sterile. Hybrid breakdown is a type of reproductive failure that appears after the F2 generation of crosses between different species or subspecies. It is caused by incompatibility between interacting genes. For example, a sterile mule produced from mating of horse and donkey, or tigon from mating lion and tiger. Now let's have a short discussion about the mechanisms of evolution. First is the genetic drift, in which certain organisms are capable of producing offspring due to chances. There is also what we call an assortative mating, in which two organisms with the same genotype or phenotype breed, while the disassortative mating, two organisms prefer a different genotype or phenotype. Second one is mutation. Could also be because of the chances, which can cause different genotype. The third one is by natural selection. Since there are different causes of death and also there is a lot of predators in nature, many organisms may die and some of their characteristics may extinct. Wait! Are you bored already? No problem. I'll tell you a story of the last type of mechanisms of evolution through a song, and this one is about migration. This organism is a cow named Jojo. Jojo was a cow who thought he was a loner, but he knew it couldn't last. Jojo left his home in Tucson, Arizona, for some California grass. Get back, get back, get back to where you once belonged. Get back, get back, get back to where you once belonged. An organism leaves his group to find or to breed with other type of the same species, just like what Jojo did. He migrated for California grass and for California girls. The modes of speciation. Let's start with allopatric speciation. Allopatric speciation is when there is a physical separation between species which separates them into two groups. This is caused by climate change or different events that make geographic changes. So from the original population, they are splitted into two and then they are reproductively isolated, which cause speciation. The second one is parapatric speciation, which is extremely rare because it occurs when populations are separated by an extreme change in habitat. For example, a grass that adapted and can only live in a contaminated soil versus a grass that grew on normal soil. Peripatric speciation. It is when small groups of individuals break off from the larger group and form a new species. This is called peripatric speciation. And compared to allopatric speciation, in peripatric speciation, one group is much smaller than the other. The last one is the sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation is the evolution of a new species from surviving ancestral species while both continue to inhabit the same geographic region. And in sympatric speciation, genetic incompatibility serve as the reproductive barrier. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.